Jerry D. Scahulia, a man of many names, Heavy Metal Jesus, Logan Shula, Ezekiel, and Elias Samson, but most know him simply as Elias. He was unfortunately released by WWE in 2023, but after 9 years, he had a run in the biggest wrestling promotion in the world that many would love to even get close to. But believe it or not, before everybody was walking with Elias, he had to go through a lot of hurdles, a lot of adversity, to actually have a pretty cool and inspirational story to tell along the way. This is Sportskeeda Wrestling. I'm Kevin Kellum. Let us know what you think of Elias. Do you walk with him? What are your favorite matches from Elias and favorite memories of him in his time in WWE?
I said WWE stands for...
Like most pro wrestlers, he started out as a fan who was inspired by legendary figures like the Macho Man Randy Savage, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. He knew early on that wrestling was his calling. At the age of 21, he began his professional wrestling journey in the Northeast region of the U.S., performing all over through various independent organizations, making bumps, making towns, and finding his way up the wrestling path. He wrestled under the name of Heavy Metal Jesus and Logan Shula, and he knew that he was in a stepping stone position to get to WWE. Unfortunately for him, it was not going to be that simple. It's not uncommon for wrestlers to get overlooked or rejected by WWE before making it, but even in this department, Elias had a very unique situation. He wasn't rejected by WWE just once, not twice, nor thrice. He was rejected by the company on 4 separate occasions. He was turned down for paid tryouts, even had major backstage names like Pat Patterson and William Regal take notice of him and invited him for a trial run. And then he was also rejected. But he was never going to let this get to him. His diligence, his resilience, played a really strong song, if you will, in his life. During one of the tryouts, he happened to meet Shawn Michaels, who told him that he had something that would stick with him for years to come. Michaels told Elias, quote, "Just remember, a lot of times, no means not yet." And he took that to heart. Elias may have never let it affect him, and after putting the pieces together and figuring out who the hell he was in the WWE's eyes, he came with a direct shot as a red-hot developmental talent on NXT. He came in at the right time. His run in NXT was interesting, but nowhere near as notable as other names at the time, like Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Bayley, Asuka, Samoa Joe, Johnny Gargano, and more, all who came to WWE with a lot of stardom and success on the independent circuit that maybe Elias himself didn't have. Plus, they were all pure wrestling talents. And this was on purpose because Elias wasn't meant to be in NXT for long. He started off as an enhancement talent, losing to more established superstars before finally debuting his gimmick, the gimmick that would be associated with him and evolve into something that would pack arenas with fans singing along. It started out as the Drifter, a guitar-wielding bad guy who trashed the crowds and his opponents to their face. He was a throwback to a kind of character that seemed to be perfect fit for the main roster of WWE, and not so much the pure wrestling characters we were getting on the black and yellow of NXT. So maybe he wasn't meant for NXT for that long. He was involved in some big matches against stars like Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, Apollo Crews, and more, and he was more often than not on the losing end of things. But it didn't really matter too much at all because it only took 19 months for him in WWE's developmental system of NXT to get the call up to join Monday Night Raw. After losing the first ever Loser Leaves NXT match to Chris Hero, he returned for one last match under a mask as El Vagabondo in what was yet another persona in his incredibly weird rogues gallery of characters. Elias was something different. He was sports entertainment in NXT, so he was really bound for the sports entertainment of Monday Night Raw. It's not like he hadn't performed in front of big crowds before. Elias performed in front of takeover crowds the size of 9,000 to 10,000. This was the peak of NXT, and he was a standout character on it. And there really wasn't anything like the bright lights, though, of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. But you know what's scarier than having to perform in front of a large crowd every week? Doing it in front of the very judgmental, powerful, and most influential man in WWE, Vince McMahon. Yeah, in your first meeting together. Thankfully, Elias passed with flying colors, which is probably why his transition to Raw on the night after WrestleMania 33 was so easy. When you get that position to be on the first season premiere episode of WWE, it means WWE's betting on you being something big. Something like that probably helped his self-confidence in a big way. The entire post-WrestleMania 32 and WrestleMania 33 period was arguably one of the stronger times in those WWE PG years, and in the aftermath of that, Elias was one of the new faces on Raw. He was introduced strolling around backstage among the crowd, and even on the main stage making his presence known with his guitar in hand. And in hindsight, it was a good way to introduce him. The interactive nature of his character was always going to get him over on that main roster. And it didn't take long for him to become a household name among die-hard fans. He feuded with Finn Balor, who was on the rebound after returning from an injury after WrestleMania. And thanks to a little help from the very spooky Bray Wyatt, he managed to get the better of him, too. That's right. In retrospect, it's kind of crazy to say that Elias beat Finn Balor, but we'll say even more crazier things as we go on here. It was during this feud that Booker T on commentary randomly became the biggest Jason Jordan hater in the world. During a match where Elias was disqualified for, doing what a wrestler does when they have a guitar, smashing it on Jordan's head, Booker T blamed Jordan for using illegal tactics when he didn't do any of the tactics. Booker! Okay, sure, shucky ducky, quack quack, I guess. We recommend you check that match out. Corey Graves losing it as Booker T's comments and laughing uncontrollably makes it quite a hilarious watch. But that's what Elias was associated with, the outlandish, weirder, out there side of wrestling. Despite losing his feud to Jason Jordan, he went on to challenge Roman Reigns for the WWE Intercontinental Championship in his first title match. And yeah, he was not bigger than the big dog. 2018 would prove to be the hottest year of Elias's run in WWE as a superstar. After a respectable 26-minute performance in the Royal Rumble match before being eliminated by John Cena, he went on to pin the GOAT himself in a triple threat match, also involving Braun Strowman. That is right. If you're goofing on Elias, remember, he pinned John Cena. In the build-up to Elimination Chambers match, where the winner would face Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania, all competitors faced off in a gauntlet match. It was the night that Seth Rollins put on a record-breaking 65-minute performance, pinning Roman Reigns and John Cena back-to-back in one of the longest TV matches in WWE history. Elias was the next man, and he took advantage of a beaten-down Rollins and pinned him before being eliminated by Finn Balor. So that's right, Elias beat the guy who beat John Cena on the same night. The Elimination Chamber saw him get eliminated by Braun Strowman early on, but it was a sign that things could possibly be looking up for the guitar-playing wrestler. He hung with the big guys of the company and seemed like he belonged and had personality that captured fans. It also allowed him to not simply be a guy who was a character bell to bell. After John Cena thought he was going to face the fake presentation for Elias to be a supporting character to John Cena, and after receiving an attitude adjustment from John, who would face The Undertaker and lose in a whopping 165-second match, it showed that Elias could be a player to other big stories and support them in unique ways. He went on to feud with Seth Rollins, who was crowned the IC champion at WrestleMania 34, before losing to him at Money in the Bank. Around this time, he also became one of the few WWE names to release a full album. That's right, he played guitar, he really played it, and it was titled WWE Walk with Elias. It was a good year for Elias, who went on to have an unforgettable segment in October of that year with Kevin Owens, where they got some of the loudest heel heat since Raw after WrestleMania 33, when Roman Reigns retired The Undertaker. Yeah, they were getting really booed that night. It was an insane level of heat, lava heat it was, triggered by Elias and KO taking shots at the city of Seattle for not having a basketball team anymore. Sorry if you're a fan of the Supersonics. Elias later revealed to Lillian Garcia that while the original plan for this segment was to go on for just about 4 minutes, the reaction that they got was so loud it was hard for them to stop, and the boos would continue for over 5 minutes. Since going over the scheduled time can cause ripple effects on a live TV show, Elias thought he was going to be in trouble. Instead, he was applauded backstage for how the segment turned out. Soon after that, he became a good guy for the first time in his career by attacking Baron Corbin and even defeated the almighty Bobby Lashley of all people in a multi-match feud. Fortunately for Elias, his character didn't work out well as a good guy. So just one night after the 2019 Royal Rumble, he turned into a villain once more. Since Elias changed his tune character-wise at the beginning of WrestleMania season, it seemed like he could be lost in the shuffle and maybe not get a big match on the biggest show of the year. That really wasn't the case, because he got to be in an in-ring segment, a surprise appearance with John Cena, who returned as his Doctor of Thugonomics character for one night only. Proving that rap was better than acoustic rock, Elias later revealed that there were plans for a match between him and Cena, but they never worked out for reasons unknown. And in a fitting full circle moment from the previous year, The Undertaker beat him up on the Raw after WrestleMania 34. How come that wasn't on WrestleMania 34? Oh yeah, that was the WrestleMania that went until 2 a.m. or something. It seemed like Elias was going to be paired with big names, but never treated like a main eventer, yet still respected by a lot of fans who enjoyed booing him and his entire play a mean song about our town while you're in our town act. Or he was just going to be the guy who got beat up by legends for a cheap pop. Not exactly the worst position to be in, but certainly not top of the card. Post the 2019 Superstar shakeup, though, he got to feud with an even more popular newcomer to SmackDown around that time, Roman Reigns. And it wasn't too bad, given that he was aligning with Shane McMahon, who was really getting booed, and it got worse when he lost to Roman Reigns in 8 freaking seconds at Money in the Bank. He had a job, and in the eyes of some, he was getting jobbed out. The remainder of the year saw him run around and chase the WWE 24/7 Championship, which was basically like a sideshow comedy element for a lot of lower tier characters, and somehow remains the only title that he's won in WWE. He actually won it 4 times, so technically he's a 4-time champion of something, of a fun thing on the side. I know, too many people get down on the WWE 24/7 title. He was the runner-up in the chaotic 51-man Battle Royal in Saudi Arabia that saw Mansoor win, and that year it culminated with a loss to Drake Maverick of all people. Elias had to pull out of the King of the Ring tournament and would take 2 months off due to an unfortunate ankle injury before returning and becoming a babyface good guy once again. During the onset of the pandemic, in the very early stages, Elias found himself feuding with Baron Corbin, who is now going by King Corbin. For some reason, they were added to the WrestleMania 36 card, and Elias would finally get to have a real showcase for himself on the show of shows. But unfortunately, this was the one with no fans on it. Elias won by roll-up. Old school wrestling. What a way to have his first match at Mania in 3 years on the main roster. Unfortunately for everyone, though, it wasn't the same kind of Mania you pursue as a pro wrestler. We bet you don't even remember the match. Hey, we don't blame you. That was a weird WrestleMania. I don't think we blame anyone on the card either. He was cut out of another tournament due to another unfortunate injury. This time it was for the Intercontinental title, and he had a torn pectoral muscle that took him out of action. In storyline, though, of course, it was a lot more entertaining. It was during Jeff Hardy's unfortunate and controversial addiction storyline that he seemingly took Elias out in a car accident before being arrested. Got to admit, it was a bit corny, but kind of ridiculous considering how it was presented on SmackDown. After a long hiatus, Elias returned later on in the year and took out Jeff Hardy in an act of vengeance, turning bad guy once again. We're starting to think he wasn't very good at being a good guy, but good at being a bad guy. You understand what we're saying. You follow the vernacular. He lost to him in some unique stipulation matches, like a guitar on a pole match. That's where the guitar is on a pole. I think you follow. And then a Symphony of Destruction match. That's another match where you have other musical instruments and you kabong them on someone. For some reason, WWE loved having Elias in these Symphony of Destruction matches. They were quite ridiculous and very over the top, like a lot of the things with his character. A couple of years earlier, he lost to Braun Strowman in one of these. The second time, it was against Jeff Hardy, and that puts him at 0-2 in a stipulation match that's supposed to be associated with him. Soon after that, he aligned with Jackson Riker. He's trying to rebound from a career-destroying, controversial political tweet that saw him post support for a former president. The two stuck together for a good chunk of 2021, and during WrestleMania 37, Elias and Riker served as Shane McMahon's cronies, getting thrown off a steel cage by Braun Strowman. Once again, another supporting role. After the ill-fitting duo of Elias and Jackson Riker unsuccessfully challenged AJ Styles and Omos for the Raw Tag Team titles, they would break up and face off in a, you guessed it, of the Elias character for a big period of time as he ditched the music and teased appearing as someone else completely different. The promise was fulfilled. After several months away, he appeared at WrestleMania 38 as his twin brother Ezekiel. They may not have been the same person, but who the heck knows? Kevin Owens was the one guy who will swear that on a family member's grave that Elias and Ezekiel are the same person. Does no one agree with Kevin? Ezekiel would begin feuding with Owens, who is coming off a WrestleMania 38 main event against Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was a bit funny of a story, and for a character, it was supposed to be pretty ridiculous, and it seemed like they were going to hit the ceiling with all of the ridiculous things you could think of. There were a few memorable moments, like the time Ezekiel and Elias appeared on screen together in a pre-edited video, and then there was the time that a third brother, Elrod, also came about. The E-names, what's the other one? Eddie or something like that? Moving on. Kevin Owens was a gem as usual, but the Triple H era kicked off in the summer of 2022, with him taking over the creative roost of WWE. And the game made his feelings known of the Ezekiel character and quickly scrapped it in favor of a return to Elias. It would be an underwhelming next year for L-Man, though, who found himself undrafted. Yeah, that's how you know you're not really in the mix with WWE, and then released just as WWE's merger with the TKO Endeavor Group became official. WWE was making big moves. Getting Elias out of the company, unfortunately, was just one of them. He got to largely be a character that he helped create for the most part. Get huge reactions around the country, do something that no one else was doing on Monday Night Raw, and sometimes he didn't even have to wrestle a whole lot to do it. But the good part about Elias is that his career is far from done. If anything, he's only getting started. In 2024, he rebranded as Elijah, is looking for his next big journey in the business. He said in an interview with Monopoly Events that he has plenty of ideas to evolve his character and take it to the next level. He wants to do television, which means major promotions like New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, or All Elite Wrestling could come calling. Though he seems to be a fit for TNA, who love themselves some wild characters like this, he agrees that he's wanting to go out there to Japan and smash any expectations that he can't go bell to bell and give him hell. He's always had the reputation of being a strong, character-driven performer, which we've already established here, but he's never had that, oh wow, he's a fantastic wrestler reputation. Maybe his time away from WWE can do that. Time to reinvent the song, write a new tune. Yeah, we're doing more musical puns. It's a chance for Elias to reinvent himself altogether and take the long road back to the big time, similar to what you saw with Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes. Even if he proves himself to a certain level and doesn't have to be as big as a Rhodes or McIntyre, he can still make a great living and be remembered as one of those guys you simply loved to boo when he came out there and strummed the guitar. Ultimately, he will be a great signing to any company that can pick him up because he can make stars while being a star himself. Thank you for watching. Let us know what you think of Elias in the comments below.